for us, it was like a real big teaching tool. They would watch it.
Okay, calm down. Yeah, because I want to sit on this chair. I'm taking a chair.
But you see like how the effectiveness is, and it's actually crazy. You fast forward to fights, and like there's like 5 or 6 presentations in each half hour.
Oh man, we have a guy who specializes in this stuff.
He should do this.
We never thought about the link to speaking.
Oh,
No, but it actually makes sense because we always think of like these presentations in a rigid setting.
No, you should see these things. For us, they
No,
were.
you have to pay the bridge that.
You've never think.
I hope so.
You guys ready to
One
roll?
kiss.
Yeah, camera's working.
We on?
Yeah.
All right. My name is Peter Rausch. My partner is Kristina Drzaic, and we are presenting on behalf of the Education Arcade. The Education Arcade, for a baseline level of knowledge to begin, is a group that studies the educational potential of computer games, and to that end, builds computer games for further experimentation.
And this presentation will be to show you about what we do and who we are, and to make this more fun, since we do study games, we've structured the presentation like a game.
We believe that the principles of gameplay can be found in almost everything we do, and as such, we have done this as an example.
Yes, so we will be playing you, and we will be the players, and let's see. Okay, so this is our agenda. We are going to cover the past, present, and future of the Education Arcade, and what our initiatives and scope and our philosophies. Quick mini game. We're going to play 20 questions. This is to get us thinking about what games are and what they do, and or also known as animal, vegetable, mineral. And just so you know, I'm thinking of an animal. Does anyone have any animal?
And does it have 4 legs?
Yes.
Dog.
What?
Dog.
No.
Okay, 4 legs. That's a good one. Does it swim?
Sometimes.
Is it a pet?
Yes.
And
So-
it swims?
Sometimes.
Elephant.
No.
This is
Yeah.
Turtle.
No.
Go ahead.
Is it a reptile?
No.
You know it?
I can't say no.
Oh, that's not fair.
I'm sworn to silence.
You heard in rehearsal,
He
doesn't
walked
count.
in on us. So, no, think of categories. How can you narrow down the field? You know it's not a reptile, and you know it has 4 legs.
Canine.
No.
Feline?
No.
Is it a mammal?
Yes.
That was a good one. We're gonna come back to that.
You're running out of questions.
No, we suck.
Don't you
We
think
so
20 questions
suck.
in the car?
Oh, I'm
Short
embarrassed.
trip.
Rabbit.
No. Think of
No, it's a-
habitats. I'll give you hints.
Oh,
Think
we
of
have to ask it.
habitats.
What?
Habitat.
Oh, it better not be a hamster.
Does
No.
it live
Terrible.
in forests?
Does it live in a cage?
Is it a
Not in
rodent?
forests.
No.
After it swims, is it still alive?
That's a question.
Good question.
Does it live in deserts?
Ooh,
Yes.
getting close.
Yeah.
Mouse? A rat?
Animals.
No. You can ask how big it is.
Yeah, how big is
Oh
Oh,
man.
No,
but
come on.
can you answer with more than yes or no?
I'm grasping, you guys.
We
Come on.
Stink,
Play
yo.
20
Oh, we're
questions.
so embarrassed.
I'm so embarrassed for
The
you.
dean should come in.
it? Okay, how big is it?
It has to be a yes or no question.
Oh.
Make a comparison.
Is
it
it bigger
small?
than a human being? Bigger than standard sized human
Yes.
being?
It's a
Whatever
pet.
that is.
Can you ride it?
Yes.
It's an elephant?
Oh no,
Horse?
horse,
Yes.
horse.
What?
Is it a horse?
Nearly.
Is it a
an
pony?
It's a pony. Oh, shoot.
I got it. Yeah, I kept my job.
Congratulations.
All right.
I
So,
feel horse
So,
like
Alright.
in thinking of that, you had to go through categories, and you had to make comparisons. And normally, one narrows down the field and doesn't ask about elephants or dogs like 5 or 6 times.
Alex.
You're actually doing in that game is essentially a logic puzzle. You are trying to get the maximum amount of information
I don't do
with the
cards.
fewest number of questions, which is why generally you go from wider categories to smaller categories, which is why it would have made sense to ask mammal instead of going off an elephant immediately. But
Yeah, I think you got like
That's what
30
we did.
questions there. So, what this game taught us, and what most games teach us, and this is just, a verbal game that people play in the car, is abstract reasoning, encourage learning by doing, exploration, mapping, patterning systems, and cause and effect. These are things that games are capable of doing. And if we can do just go through a few of those categories in 20 questions, think of what you can do with an interface and graphics and a better structure and bigger rule sets. So, to begin,
let's make this to the present.
the present.
Education Arcade, the division of the Comparative Media Studies program, drawing on a philosophy of applied humanism, which is a very, very nice sounding term. What it actually means is a matter of some mystery to many people. Applied humanism is an attempt to bridge the surprisingly large bridge between theory and practice. It's very large in the field of electronic game studies, especially. So what Education Arcade is attempting to do is investigate the rather large amount of theory on how games work and how they could potentially teach, and actually try to build something with it.
So to make this easier to understand, I've made a handy little graphic. Okay, so in the field of game studies in the field that Education Arcade covers, we have electronic game studies, game designers, and educators. And we see ourselves plopped in the middle. And we draw influences, we come from a variety of backgrounds. We draw influences from ludology, narratology, film and media studies, and media literacy. And we try to integrate and be the bridge between all these different fields. So, level 2.
The past follows the present, you're just going to have to bear with us.
In following and being the bridge, we develop games based on, to try to cover all the fields through education, game theory, and game design. So our games have tried to cover innovative and experimental game forms through our projects.
We try to do something new each time. But the games they vary a great deal in genre, format, and even apparatus in many cases.
Okay, so this all began, the first game initiative was in 2001 with a game called Supercharged, which was part of the Games to Teach project, which spanned from 2001 to 2003. And it was funded by Microsoft, and the project was to develop games across a variety of fields. And one of the best ones was Supercharged.
Supercharged is quite obviously designed as an addition to a physics curriculum. The narrative structure, plot of the game, concerns a group of students who have been sucked into a projector by an evil physics professor. They play as a tiny spaceship with the properties of a charged particle, and must place electrical charges around the game map to propel or otherwise move their ship around and accomplish various goals.
So essentially what you were doing in 20 questions, when you asked us questions and we're supposed to narrow down the field, that's what you do when you play Supercharged. So, I don't know, maybe you guys shouldn't play
Ouch, yo.
it.
There are a number of particular benefits for physics in video game education. One thing, computers are very effective at simulating physics. The variables tend to be pretty well known in most areas, and they tend to be quantitative in nature. Computers are essentially math machines, so this is something that's easy for them to do generally.
One of the coolest parts, and something that's very hard to teach in education, is the game utilizes multiple rule sets, so you can switch between different, like the rules of physics according to Maxwell and Newton. So you can see how those influence the way you move within the game. Another game we did was Environmental Detectives, which is an augmented reality game using Palm Pilots and GPS systems to see how they can be utilized for gaming and education.
Yeah, for alternate reality gaming is a term for, no, augmented reality gaming. Alternate reality gaming is entirely different. Augmented reality gaming concerns the use of electronic interface over the real world. So this particular game uses GPS-equipped Palm Pilots and characters navigate an actual map, in this case the MIT campus, and investigate a fictional chemical spill.
This was used by students and working in groups to discover the purpose, the cause of the chemical spill, and to prevent, to try to stop people from getting sick by isolating the area. So it took learning by doing, teamwork and collaboration, role playing, and it was mapped on real locations, so they had to learn about map reading and coordinate systems as well. So, and that one was very successful. We had lots of students come to campus and try it out, and apparently it was very fun. One of the most recent games we've done is Revolution, and one of the problems, do you want me to talk about that?
Sure.
Okay.
One of the more common problems associated with educational software are that the graphics and overall presentation are usually not up to par with what's available in commercial for-profit games. Revolution attempts to circumvent this, that the game is a modification of an existing commercial product called Neverwinter Nights.
Yeah, as you can see, the graphics are very pretty. They're up to par with the graphics at the time, which was 2 years ago.
Longer than that. The game itself concerns an event in June 1775 in Virginia that contributed to the build to the Revolutionary War. It's a multiplayer game. Players take on a number of roles, some real, some fictional. And Revolution is actually one of my favorites because I think one of the things that's hard to do with history education is to get past the idea of dates and places and get back to the idea that history at one point was the present. It was about real people making difficult decisions and facing far-reaching consequences.
So one of the coolest things about Revolution was that it was structured for a classroom, and students would get together within the classroom and play it, and they'd all play a different role and interact with each other. And then afterwards, to see what they learned, one of the projects done was children had to take screenshots of their adventure and talk about what they did within the game. So one of the, this might be hard to hear.
Sound is not what we hoped.
Yeah. Ooh. It's gonna play.
My name is Tatsun Grimes, and I'm a seamstress. My daughter Betsy and myself have a small shop. I might have seen it, but I'm a...
I didn't account for this change in screenshot size. But
Can you just double click the video?
huh?
Can you just double click on the video to click full screen?
No.
And that would be ideal, wouldn't it?
That would be nice. Alright, let's try it.
My name is Tatsun Grimes, and I'm a seamstress. My daughter Betsy and myself have a small shop. I mightn't seem it, but I'm a patriot. Today, a patriot sought after me to sew a fake red coat, so he mayhaps can swipe some ammunition from Lord Dunmore's magazine. The Lord's actions are utterly unloyal to his town. To acquit his actions, we shall have a debate today concerning that topic. I am stirring up the townsfolk, and hopefully this issue will be solved, be it peaceful or otherwise.
So what this showed was that, as you could see, she really absorbed a lot of the information they were trying to get across within the game and was able to tell people about it afterwards. And that was one of the most amazing parts about Revolution. Most recently, we developed a game called Gung Ho. It draws on free online technology.
Gung Ho has attempted to use several non-game sources of online information and create a game out of them. It's predominantly based on Google Maps, also incorporates the use of Wikipedia, National Weather Service online information, and possibly instant messaging and email depending on where it's played.
And the idea was that the game was based upon finding accurate information, so it taught media literacy in the sense of determining between good and bad information, and what was a good source and what was a bad source. So you learn that Wikipedia is not the end-all source of all information. And essentially it was an augmented board game. It was an augmented board game where people had little avatars and they'd move around. These are just some quick graphics, they're prototypes. And they'd move around through Google Maps and find landmarks and collect them, and reflected the most landmarks in the shortest amount of time. It had very simplistic rule sets. and it was seen as to be an out-of-classroom activity. Yeah, that's about it. So, level 3, the future. As you've seen, normally in game studies and in gaming, people take a singular approach to games. They'll appropriate a few of them and put them together, but we've gone across the board and tried to look at all aspects of it. So we see ourselves incorporating many of those things and looking at all of them. Anything else? Okay, so we have made appearances at E3. SIGGRAPH is coming up this summer, and Gamers Developers Conference, and we are following up on. I changed the slide. Sorry. And we're developing many more games currently. And currently we're working on the Maryland Public Television Project, which is called Learning Games to Go, and we're currently in the design process, so nothing has been determined yet about exactly what we're doing. We're developing 2 games to teach literacy and 2 to teach math. And it's a STAR Schools grant, so hopefully in the end these games we develop will be used across the state of Maryland and eventually the entire U.S. We like to have a broad scope. Game over. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No laughter.
Oh.
No, we have to get to work now.
That was not supposed to happen.
It doesn't automatically.
Yes,
We should just go ahead and explain this.
I want to battle the boss, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Ask
no,
the
you
most
are the
obvious
boss.
question you can think of.
Huh?
That's
What's the next slide?
That was not.
Okay. You did not see that next slide.
Of course not.
Forget it.
So, questions?
Somebody.
We didn't finish our game yet, you see.
Talk more about this Google game. I didn't quite get.
Okay, the actual the plot of the game has went through many revisions, and we probably designed 3 or 4 different versions of this game over the course of last semester. But the one we ended up finalizing was a game in which a number of teams of players are in a contest traveling across country on solar-powered vehicles, and get points for finding and tagging landmarks. The dynamic weather systems are built into the game, so real-time data from weather services will be into the game and affect the overall performance of the vehicles. Going in a straight line is not always the best idea. You need to keep in mind weather. You need to be able to avoid other players who can slow you down.
And players have moved once a day. They log on to a web-based server, and
What's the educational goal of that? To just teach students to navigate within web resources?
Most of it is what's called collateral learning, which is learning not directly related to the game experience. It is mostly about literacy and using online, just going through online information gathering, information sharing, collaboration, dealing with the game itself.
also a fun way to teach geography. We went through the state standards, and our rule sets were based upon teaching the state standards for geography in the 5th grade, which I should have mentioned.
Let me ask, that raises also a really interesting question about your relationship to established pedagogy. Are you partnering with educational specialists and teachers, or how does this fit within existing frameworks for curricula and expertise in that domain? I understand that you're media experts and game people, but where that meets pedagogy and where that can be deployed in schools has a lot to do with the school side of the equation. How does that work out?
Well, we've tested all our games within schools, and we've developed many partnerships with educators. For instance, we're doing the Maryland Public Television project right now, in which the design process, we will be going to schools and watching children play and interviewing them and field testing. And we've done this with all our games, especially Revolution was one of the most in-depth collaboration with teachers. And we intend to do that again.
But just in the testing phase or development as well?
Development as well. the entire process is going to be taking feedback from teachers and educators.
How do teachers get the technology they need to be able to use this?
Well, that's one of the concerns. Revolution was one of the games that was meant to make it easily accessible, and Gung Ho we were thinking it would be a web-based application where they just have to sign on and they need just a computer lab. But it's hard to develop games because the technology is different across the board. So a lot of these initiatives are experimental to see what is possible, if there's enough money for technology.
Why should teachers and students in school listen to you when you tell them that these games are good for them? What reasoning do you, I mean, what, I guess I'm saying, why, is it just because Education Arcade is from MIT and it has that name, or do you have some kind of theoretical, pedagogical backing to all the work you do?
The theoretical background would be the work concerning how people learn, and the reason we start with the game is the idea that what we do when we play is intimately bound up in the way we make new mental connections and absorb new ideas. Now, the question we've been waiting for someone to ask was, if this is true, why aren't all games educational? And which is somewhat connected to what you're saying. The fact that this is a game should not mean school should be using it.
No, I don't care about other games. I'm saying if you go into a school and tell the teachers or tell whoever, like, so we've developed this and we want to implement it or whatever, how do you convince them that this is good in general and this is good for their school or for their students to play?
I don't like hand them a great deal of literature, but that never really convinces anybody of anything.
Well, that is one of the problems, and teachers are, quite a few of them are frightened of games and the fact that they aren't in control of the situation. What we try to do is we try to educate them and show them how things like, the revolution, the growth, showing back the knowledge she learned about through role-playing, showing concrete examples of how games can help us learn. It has been a big help in convincing teachers exactly what it is we need to, what we do, and why we are valuable.
We try to develop games that can promote class discussions and be integrated into a curriculum in a way that doesn't overwhelm it. And again, as with every other presentation we're probably going to see today, we have to reiterate that this is a tool and not a replacement.
Yes.
But part of my intervention was excellent. Part of what I was going to ask was kind of related to that, because I was wondering, one of the ways to build that kind of argument, of course, is to show real kind of, like to show other areas where there has been this praxis, where people have done this. Have you been able to use that kind of information to sort of buttress the argument of why this is important, why this is useful? And I mean, I'm mostly thinking about the role that games play, these kind of educational games play in a place like Japan, where there's a lot higher integration of kind of educational games. It's like more common and more accepted. I mean, I'm thinking about just a few years ago, a game that was wildly popular in Japan, but was literally just an educational game, was Type or Die. Remember Type or Die?
Could you explain?
Yeah, but it was depending on the way they translated the title. It was either Type or Die or Type of the Dead.
The Type or Die was the tagline.
Right.
For Typing of the Dead.
Okay.
I have it on here.
Cool. Well, some of the machines in Japan actually said Type or Die instead of using the tagline for the actual arcade. And what it was it was simply that one first-person shooter, that House of the Dead, where instead of shooting, the kids would type the word that appears over the zombie, and if you typed it in time, the zombie would die. And it was wildly popular in Japan, and people were talking about how it was helping not only like the whole thing of learning all the characters, how it not only increased, like a lot of teachers were very happy with it, because they were like, it was this popular daily praxis these kids were getting. And they were like, Type or Die took off a lot of our work. And currently in Tokyo, in Japan, the Nintendo, what's the new game one? The one
DS. Nintendo DS and the brain training, right?
Huh?
The brain training games?
Yeah, I mean,
That's new
every-
though, that's a new development.
Well, no,
We're
but
very
that's,
pleased with that.
but that's part of this longer, in other words, you can draw a direct line from, you know, type or die to this. In other words, it's not just 2 steps, there's a lot of different, this has been a long tradition in Japan. And so, what I'm saying is that because these things are happening and they're on the ground, it would be a good thing for y'all maybe to look at and see if you could amass some information, because it would make the arguments actually stronger.
Well, we are thinking of, do you mean talking about the lineage of educational games?
No, if you
Or
have some,
just in Japan?
well, no, if you have some evidence that in another industrialized society, educational games have had like not only widespread acceptance, but have had certain effect on the population of young people.
Okay,
You're talking
I
about
understand what you're saying,
You're talking about a sort of focused measurable effect.
I'm thinking if it's available, why not tap it? Because it could lead directly to answering that question, like.
Going more to Japan might be a good idea. We tend to, there is some evidence at times the games have been used to teach in America in the last 5-10 years.
With the Oregon Trail and Carmen San Diego.
Pirates was
educational
used in the class
games.
project very famously. As to why we haven't used Japan very much, I'm not exactly sure.
No, I'm not saying why, I'm just pointing out that this might be a useful, it wasn't like, why didn't you? Bad kids. No, I'm just saying that this is a good fount of information that might help you if you to buttress some of the claims.
Okay, I'll take
Yeah.
that into consideration.
Sorry.
How do you address the critique that, you know, we see declining literacy rates in schools, the functional literacy rate for people entering universities is declined enormously over the period in which games have entered the culture and distracted people from a reading culture. And I can see where this might have certain advantages, but doesn't it, A, take away time that students might actually be reading, and B, doesn't it introduce kids who haven't yet played games to this seductive world that's, you know, it's fine in the classroom, but they're going to go home and play Doom and Grand Theft Auto, and is this what we should be doing?
What a surprise.
We had a presentation Easter egg.
Yeah, we were going to put this in the main presentation, and we were told it was too negative, and we should save it for questions.
Yeah,
But knowing that it was going to come up anyway, we went ahead and made the slide.
Yes, so the answer I'd give you is that, yes, that is a change, that is a paradigm shift in our culture. Children are reading less, but they are also gaining other abilities from gaming, especially multitasking and ability to pay attention to multiple things and organizational qualities. So I wouldn't say it's a complete loss, but since games are there, children are, I don't think they're taking away time they're going to read. If children are going to be playing games anyway, you might as well make it very valuable for them. And you learn something from every game you play.
Yeah, I'm a bit less optimistic, not so much less optimistic, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure there is anything to be done about the idea of declining literature or literacy rates, because there's so much more media to be consumed, and that I don't think that's really a good thing. I don't know if it's really a bad thing. It's not really something any of us can deal with.
And I don't know if they're reading less, because if they're reading MySpace pages all the time and they're reading they're reading more. It's just that the quality of what they read is different.
You actually do an enormous amount of reading in any media, including video games. You do an enormous amount of reading when you watch TV. We just don't tend to think of it as such.
So a couple of good answers to this. I mean, one of them is a game like Revolution requires reading and writing. It's a word interface game, so it depends a bit on the game. Second is that literacy is far more than just words. We have a culture where literacy requires command of images, blah, blah, blah. This maps onto that.
The other thing is that the reading in games is very much about functional literacy. Kids reading instructions and making sense out of it.
I was going to bring up, I did learn several GRE words from playing, what was it? Gosh, what's the game I learned, you, Alec?
Which one?
The GameCube one.
Oh, Fire Emblem?
Yeah, Fire Emblem.
Yeah.
Had lots of GRE words in it. I was very surprised when I went to study the GREs.
And maybe the third thing, and this with your presentation in general, is sort of there, but it might be a bit sharper, is that games, we think of games in the little world of entertainment, but really we're talking about a medium. And like any medium, like photography versus print or moving image versus still photography, it's got capacities that make it unique, and that you're trying to broker those unique attributes, those unique affordances in ways that have the educational experience. So you're just trying to find added value and exploit that.
I should have spent more time on the thought bubble slide.
I thought those were great, by the way. Those were really great, and maybe a little more, because the graphics were great. They said the right stuff, and yeah, maybe.
Is it okay to seg into critique?
Yeah, I think we're in for critique now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You obviously were working at the one disadvantage that you were asked to speak about something that you actually have. I mean, you do care about games, but you haven't been working on the educational arcade for very long, and you're starting to form an argument for it. And what I was going to say is I thought that the thing to work on is sort of the courage of your convictions. Which is that when you came out of the 20 questions, first of all, going into the 20 questions, you did have a tough audience. But if you had really,
I lost all fear right there.
If you had really sort of worked out for yourself why you were doing it, it would have helped you guide you. If you knew, in fact, in the slide that came up, you said this is about categories, and this is about, if you had applied that conviction about why you were doing it while we were playing the game, it would have got you out of the jam that we put you in.
Okay.
You would have said, now let me just point out that this is a game of, you would have started to, instead of just sort of feeling slightly helpless in our ineffectiveness, it's sort of about accessing what you really know. And then that came in the end, then after the game, and you sort of rushed through the value of it. In fact, that's really the meat of your presentation.
Yeah.
And you should have had the courage to sort of stick with it and explain why you were, why you had done what you had done.
I had the feeling that your presentation was exactly like City of Horrors. In the sense it was fun, it was really nice, it had the anecdote, everyone was along. And then when it all had to happen, well, okay, what's the value? Because right now I'm taking on, okay, they're building educational games and education arcade, but right where you had to like really make yourself like convincible that you guys really are the right people to be doing this stuff because you know about that and that and that, and you have links to them and that. There I got a bit confused with the slides moving really quickly, and I couldn't follow anymore. But you got me like with the game was really awesome to go into it. Do you wanna? Do you know what I mean? Or?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean because I blanked out right there, and I knew I had a lot to say, and I couldn't recall what it was. So.
That's a really good assessment. I think energy level, use of anecdote, working from the concrete out was brilliant, but there wasn't much there.
No, I think we struggled with the content form dilemma pretty much when we started the project. We've gone back and forth, and we probably just went a little bit too much towards form.
And there are really like a lot of areas, like when issues of expertise come up. Like Revolution's a great example. When you think about what you guys do, they're game special, and you had such great graphics that would sort of lend themselves to this. You've got game expertise, that's what you're doing. But Revolution was partnered with like America's most important historian of the Revolution, Pauline Meyer. And then you work with teachers, and it's like, well, whoa, you've got world-class content specialists, world-class game specialists, and you're using, I don't know if I can say world-class, but at least pedagogical specialists. That's terrific, and that's, you can really bring home the bacon with each of your examples with just a little more, with just another layer of content depth.
Okay.
With Revolution, you could point out that Russell came from Oxford Education School, and so we had a partnership there, directly working with, MIT.
That's great.
All right, so build us up more.
But just point out that it's not just we're handling the media side, and then we've got Wisconsin and Oxford, really doing the education side, and between us, we've got some real powerful stuff there. And then maybe to pull it all together, you could, I don't know if you have access to the write-up Russell did, he's still working on it.
No, it's lost.
Well, it's on Rightly, he's still working on it.
Really?
He isn't, but that has, I think, some statements from teachers that would be really powerful to pull out and to say, this is how it's really played out in the classrooms, and teachers are finding it really valuable. With the earlier question that William had raised about, the decline from regular literacy, I usually try to point out how synergistic transmedia properties can be with one another, and so to say,
So is that the convergence question?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
So kids have been declining in their literacy, yeah, but now there's all these kids that will go play Lord of the Rings and want to read the book, and then especially if you go look at like Rebecca Black's work, I don't know if you're familiar with her, but definitely someone to look at. She's really good statements about just how games get people back into reading and writing and fan cultures and learning other practices because they're getting into these worlds through games. And so it's not that you're taking away from these other properties, you're really getting them more into these media things.
And I think just one of the things Ravi just did in his discussion is that whenever you speak to a group, you have different expertise in it. You've got different attitudes, skeptics, and people that are all totally for you. You've got people that know a hell of a lot about content, and others who know a lot about pedagogy. And you've got to sort of slightly do a shotgun thing that's packaged by energy and anecdote. The energy and anecdote was there, and that was terrific. But being able to sort of name drop once in a while, like someone asks about, like for example, I'm not a pedagogical person, but it sounds to me like this is all based on the constructionist notion, the constructivist notion of education. Well, that's important to say. Comes from the notion that experience is valuable, that it's not about pouring information into the empty vessel. This is about an experience-based approach. So when you talk about how this fits into the pedagogical framework, that's dropping that little buzz, if that's indeed the buzzword pedagogues use, would be useful. Or dropping an occasional, so-and-so, well, so-and-so's argument, just being able to sprinkle that salt and pepper on the argument gives it depth and authority for those people listening for it. If not too much that it's going to, not too much salt, which will turn off the people that don't know anything about it. But it just gives greater range to what's a great story.
Okay.
A thing that I thought was very, there was a slide about the education arcade and when it was grounded in philosophical humanism. I'm forgetting what it was, but you sort of threw it away. In fact, you sort of suggested to me at that moment, I'm not sure I really believe in this.
Oh, applied humanism.
Applied humanism, excuse me.
That was,
Sorry, that was not my intention at all.
Right,
right, but it did come off as like whatever, kind of whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, it's all on a word. Yeah.
And I think it has to do with it, and I'm sort of trying to build on what Williams is saying, that if you think about all these things, they're pieces of fruit that you're sort of hanging out there on a branch. You need to make sure that they're really there for someone to take. In other words, don't put it out, or maybe I'm going to get lost in a bad metaphor. But
Easter eggs there for the plucking.
Right. But don't put it out there if you're not really going to, it's not really going to be developed. It's not going to really be something someone can get a hold of. And that goes to both that and generally the ideas that you're trying to develop. Make sure that they're developed enough to have some substance. Or leave them out. I mean, it's okay to leave some things out.
Right. Yeah. But that's a good one, because, I mean, if you think of how Henry tends to, what his, 25-word spin on that is, it's like, well, hey, in physics we have theoretical physics, but where the rubber hits the road is applied physics, and that's where it all happens. And the humanists have, for much too long, spent their time being theoretical and critical, but what we're trying to do is bridge that gap and make something happen in the world. And that's a wonderful, I mean, it's a wonderful endeavor if you frame it in a way that's very familiar. And makes this make a lot of sense. Just presentational. Do you have a presentation?
I have lots. So go ahead. And the first couple of slides, can you go back to the beginning? Kristina wants me to keep my mouth shut.
No comment.
Forward 2 slides, 3 slides. Yeah, actually those 2 slides with a lot of text, you just sort of skipped over them.
That's because they were a joke.
I know, but in order for it to be funny, we either have to be able to read it, which we need more time for, or you need to say something about it. So if it is just a joke, you can achieve the joke with fewer words, which allows us to read the right words.
And actually, I got to say about courage and convictions, there's real substance. You may have thought it was a joke, but what you're really saying is that gameplay is far more evident than you think. That in fact there is a game-like quality to this, and and have developed that. I mean, I think you were onto something that you then didn't trust.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
Well,
That's probably true.
Yeah.
I'll save my other comments for after.
Well, we trusted it because we presented it.
You trusted it enough to present it. You trusted it enough to make a slide, but not enough to.
I mean, this is not.
I mean, I felt like you were doing a really
I feel like
experimental
those are useful
presentation.
interventions.
Yeah.
There's nothing about putting anyone on the spot. it gets a lot worse when it's people with a grip of money around.
Yeah, but these are people I have to be friends with afterwards.
You're doing them a favor.
Yeah, you're doing them a favor, so continue.
All right.
Did you write a list?
Yeah, I have about 10
That's
comments.
Here.
It's like, wow.
Wow,
Look at that,
this
look
is a
at
funny
this
moment.
man.
I know, this is a funny moment. I thought the point was we split the audience.
No, it's good.
Your body language says no.
Strangely enough.
Oh look, my list just got deleted by accident. Oh no.
Really? That, it's like that?
No, it's not, we're supposed to talk, I mean, this is
This
about.
is the
It's like
feedback,
that?
so
I'm like,
it's
oh my
very-
god, I wish I'd been warned by Henry.
Feel free, we're not done
Yeah,
13
go
minutes. so.
for it.
All right.
My god.
I talk too fast, my body language is awkward.
Your body language is very.
That
close.
wasn't.
It is
one
very
of
close, and you stand either with your arms folded or.
Yeah,
behind your
yeah,
back.
I was trying to figure out.
I thought that though, like, especially in the beginning, because well, we know you, so we know that you talk fast, and I thought you did a really good job in the beginning to like slow it down over the course. Like towards the end, you became faster, but I thought like in the beginning that you.
I thought it went pretty fast through all of it, and periodically I would panic and slow it down, but even then it didn't feel slow enough. So I'm glad it came off okay for parts of it.
Yeah, I think so.
Does that, do you tend to speak very fast usually?
Yeah.
Huh.
If you're really serious about doing presentations over time, I don't, it may not be, I don't know where it fits in your schema, but it would be worth taking an addiction, getting an addiction lesson or two, just because I learned it doing theater. I learned.
Yeah, I took theater in undergrad and then helped
Yeah.
a lot of presentations, but it's been a while since then, and this was really too complex to have a word for word script up, which is what, when I really need to be slow, I need to have it word for word.
Because I think you have a really good ability of constructing your sentences in the sense that they convey a lot of depth. Every time you say something, I really want to know every word, and sometimes I get lost because of the speed, but since I got acquainted with it, I can understand everything, but probably if you present to a new audience, they might.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, but I thought the trade-off between the two worked, I mean, was really very, very
Yeah.
natural, very, it
Yeah.
was like clear that you guys were on the same page, the same
Okay.
team, and it wasn't scripted, it didn't feel heavily scripted, that worked brilliantly. So I think, yeah, a little bit of work on that, and you tend to you editorialize a little bit in your, like with applied humanism, there's
Yeah,
a way in
that's,
which, if, it's clear where you stand on certain
it's
issues.
basically a reflex, I'm trying to stop, but thank you.
It depends on the audience. I mean, with some audiences, you
Yeah.
go nuts, but with, if you're selling this to, if you're trying to win over money,
No, it works okay in class, not so much for funding. Got it.
Yeah, but it's also just a good, I mean, you're talking about this, but one of the ways that when we were training people for public speaking is that really like kind of practical things. It's like the idea of, and now it's really popular, but back when we were doing it wasn't popular, poker. And the whole idea, like, outside of just the money, the thing with poker is that why would you let anyone know what cards you have? So that's the whole thing about editorializing is it's like poker doing this, showing people your cards, like before you even start bidding. So you gotta want to try to remember that. We used to make our kids play poker, and after a few times of losing, they're like, oh my god. And every time they editorialize and say something, we make them show us a card. And you can't win when you're like, have to show us a card. So I actually thought it's a good way to think of a way to stop that, because that information is just going to make us easier to mess with jaw. But I actually wasn't in agreement. I thought that the individual presentations were excellent. I think that the way that your two personalities work together is really, really cool. I actually think that if you just tweak, like don't editorialize and don't mutter off at the end,
Okay.
because you have a great way of talking at the beginning of sentences, and I actually have difficulty hearing people. So when you mutter off at the end, you completely disappear.
Okay.
But I thought actually, the reason I was disagreeing, I thought each of the two of you are excellent. You have your personalities kick ass, and together they're even funnier. Like they're just cool. They're really good. I just like the way it interacts together.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel the handoffs. I actually didn't think that Jaw handed off very well. I actually thought it was very awkward, and there were moments where each of you didn't know if the next person was going to speak. And part of that for me was at the beginning, you were choosing to hand off too quickly. Like at the beginning, you all were doing, you do one sentence, I do the next. You do one sentence, I do the next. And I didn't work for me, and I thought that you had more of a chance to confuse yourselves, and there was like 3 moments I counted where you were each prompting each other, where you were like,
Yeah.
like, and no, because people are a lot meaner than us, you know. And you guys are good, in other words, you got your shit down, so why would you have that weakness at the point of the articulation, where it joins together, you know? And so, definitely you wanna, I thought the earlier presentation was super seamless. You could tell they had worked on handoffs, you know? I don't feel like
But
you
we
guys
had
have,
less, so that's easier.
well, no, I'm not saying it's a moral judgment.
Yeah,
In other words, I actually don't care why
Yeah.
it's good for y'all. Like, great, I'm glad that worked for y'all. But the thing is that you should have a go-to plan always built in. If there's any gaps, there should be one person who knows they're the one to talk.
Okay.
So,
Dan, do you have other stuff?
did we warm you up there?
Yeah.
Do we feel like you no longer bear the brunt?
So I guess I have a question for the panel, which is there was one point when Kristina had said something about Neverwinter Nights being from about 2 years ago, and Peter corrected her and said no, it was a couple of years before that, and so I was just wondering how should we handle that in general? Like, should
Yeah, I
you correct your
know. What
partner?
should
Should
you
you
do
not correct your partner?
I think
If-
once you make the mistake
I'll
and
just
you're,
avoid
it's
it.
not
Let it
crucial,
slide.
then you
I'll just
should
not say
correct
dates
it.
anymore.
Again,
No.
reflex action.
No, I think you're, say it again, please, like, they
So
were
if
talking
you're,
through
if
your.
it's not crucial, like for the day, you're not going
Yeah.
on and elaborating on it, you don't have to correct it. If people come up you, like later on, you can say, yeah, I mismentioned that, I was thinking of another number, and you can correct yourself, but for the general presentation.
I think of it, right, there's no real harm done
Yeah.
in
I mean,
the misconception, then I wouldn't worry about it. If there is a misconception, I think one of the things you learn over time, if there's something that's really important to correct because you don't want it to be factually inaccurate, you've got to have the kind of rapport where you can figure out a way of saying, in the heat of the, I don't know what it would be, but it might be something like, in the heat of this presentation, you know, we regularly confuse dates, and so my partner just said this date meant that date. There's some way of doing it that sort of takes the sting off of it.
If it's really important.
Yeah,
That's
if it,
fine.
but only if it's
I
important,
mean,
that's right.
That's why I didn't
like,
say
like,
about.
like what would be important would really depend on like the audience and the context.
That's right.
I mean, like
Yeah.
for instance, like for us, it's probably not that important. Like if you're trying to convince like a panel of I don't know game designers that you know what you're
Yeah,
talking
if you're
about,
presenting
it's
three
really
Yeah.
important.
That's right, that's right.
Yeah, but I think the point is that you're not going to get anything out of correcting each other midstream. So the point your peer made is actually, in the end, no matter who the audience is, you're getting nothing out of it. The thing is to make sure that, like you said, you have the backup go-to plan, so that the correction can come out during Q&A, the correction can come in another place, but I just think, in general, from the level of rhetoric, correcting each other back and forth, muy malo. This is, and you know, and because it goes against that general joy that I can't pronounce French,
Joie de vivre.
that you guys have. You guys get asked that way, so when you did that, you kind of took me out of the fun.
Yeah.
To add to that, I thought maybe you can do, I mean, I like the performative aspect of it, and I think maybe a way of transitioning is by having more banter. I mean, if there's awkwardness, maybe by just keeping that, if it's a 2-person show and there's, you know, and there's good chemistry, maybe there can be little informal talk connecting while you're transferring from one person to the other, and just joking with each other and just enjoying that process of having a good time being together and presenting as well can be one way of easing it, and also for getting the audience into your world in that sense. So it becomes like a conversation that y'all are having and you're part of it.
So we tried that last night and then ended up having a 45-minute conversation, so.
No, I mean,
There's
yeah.
danger there.
But discipline is good.
Yeah, or if there's a pause and say, well, you know, that's your cue. I don't know, so something funny, something whatever that
Yeah.
lightens it
yeah,
up.
yeah.
It's excellent.
So,
What did you guys think of the Easter egg? To be honest, I always prepare extra slides because I know kind of what's going to come up in Q&A. Now, instead of combing back through the text, I like to be ready for it. So personally, I really liked it, and I thought it dealt with the question seriously while also quickly relativizing it and saying, oh yeah, that old.
Well,
What did you guys think? Did that work for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
But I've never been to a games conference that didn't mention Grand Theft Auto, so.
You got to, yeah.
You can predict that's going to come
Yeah,
out.
I mean, like,
There,
the main thing about it which concerned me was that like for whatever reason, like when you couldn't keep the actual keynote slides from like moving on to that was kind of dangerous ground.
Yeah, it's okay.
Well, it
then
made you look
no,
unprofessional. It is the main thing.
yeah.
But a lot of it's
That wasn't supposed to
the
No, I know,
technology
I mean-
here is but. Like part of it is that the tech here is really but. And the other thing is that, in other words, it's terrible. I mean, we didn't even have sound. I mean, part of the joy of an Easter egg is that you also get a fun little, you get a great audio cue. But I do think your point is good in the sense that definitely for the Easter egg, and it brings in the excellent comment made just before, the thing with the Easter egg, you'll definitely want to, if you can have something that you don't have to like bend over, if you can trigger it without making too much motion, it would be really, really cool.
Yeah.
In other words, if you know when you have the slide,
Yeah.
because
With
that,
poker face.
yeah, because that would kick ass. It's such a
See,
fun.
and I even built safeties in there. I had 2 slides after that were supposed to prevent me from hitting the.
Yeah.
It's,
But then it made people want to find it, right?
would you be concerned if it was like a really hostile audience, if they would find that too condescending?
Right.
The
But I just raised it as a question. I thought, oh, maybe it could be read that way, but I thought it dealt with it in a substantial way, while also making clear this is a request.
And I think if you can add verbally to it, if you can take the question afterwards really seriously and say, well, this is our standpoint on it, and this is what we think about it, and really, like, take the person, then it's really the moment to take the person who asked the question seriously, because probably the person asked it in all good faith.
And you're not saying it, in fact, maybe it's taking a different stance on this. We're not answering this question because, oh boy, we're so bored with that. But rather,
No,
this is
that
a
didn't
very,
occur to
it's an
me.
important, critical question that everyone's asking,
Yeah.
and we anticipated
Yeah.
that.
yeah.
I mean, it's a respect.
There was no meanness behind the Easter egg.
No, but
slide.
that just
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that prelude
That
exactly. That
Yeah.
prelude
Yeah, I would've
exactly
really introduced it.
is the one.
Okay.
In other words, with this
It's an important
gentleman.
question that was asked.
Yeah, that actually is it, and it's beautifully put. And you know, people are going to want to. I honestly think my sense of it, because if someone takes it as condescending, it's already in lawyer speak. You've got to consider them a hostile witness. You know what I mean, from the beginning, because your spirit is just fun but very, very serious. And so I think that with that preface, you'll be fine.
And that's when you should tell them a story.
Shoot, I hope you were telling a story the whole time.
I liked the way you phrased that Grand Theft Auto slide, where you're like the Grand Theft Auto question, as if there were only one, because you know that someone's gonna ask something about Grand Theft Auto, but you don't know, is it gonna be like games destroying America, games actually teach,
The naked Easter
Right.
egg,
The
the
sex-
sex,
The
the
common
sex Easter egg.
element, the common element in questions about Grand Theft Auto is basically the phrasing of almost any argument about the value of video games for education or social good or anything else can be effectively countered in most modern media channels by the simple question, what about Grand Theft Auto?
Yeah.
So that is the inevitable Grand Theft Auto question. 3 word.
Well,
Well,
I know when I made the slide, I tried to keep it really general so it could adapt to a variety of
Right.
questions.
And then and then when you got there, again, going back to my first comment about courage of your convictions, you owed us,
Yeah, I would have liked this kind of stuff
you
more.
owed us further elaboration on those
Right,
points.
this,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where there's sort of my starting thing. There's so many good ways to answer this about this being, that, what about Pulp Fiction? I mean, it's not the word's fault, and it's not the game's fault, that we're talking about a medium here that has capacities that you're trying to explore. So I think a lot of good ways to answer it, and it was great to anticipate it, and you're right, you have to keep it open because you don't know how the question's going to come in, but a more fulsome answer. And just,
Okay.
what happened? I mean, I thought it really rocked, and then till we got to the third act and the future, and then it was like, and it started to kind of.
You know what happened
Falter.
to me was there was a bullet point and titles, and I had them all there before, and I replaced that, figuring, oh yeah, that'll look better, and I can talk that fine. And then the bullet points were there, and I'm like, what were they? So that's what happened, because I should have not done a last minute change.
I have another suggestion because we talked about the body language of Peter, and I wanted to make a suggestion. I don't know, because it has that influence on me, but I don't know if it has the influence on the entire panel. But you're doing this and this, and it kind of distracts me of what you're saying. You know, like I think the setup.
I'm sorry, who are you talking to, Kristina?
Kristina.
I'm sorry, you didn't say that. Go ahead.
I think the setup is really fun, like really fun with the game and Easter egg. And you guys have indeed like this dynamic, but besides of that, you want to be taken seriously, and you do that through content, but also through body language. And
I disagree with that
around-
actually. I
You
think
disagree with that?
yeah, I think that's part of her personality. I think that's what makes her. I'm allowed to disagree, right? Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
No. Yeah, I didn't get that memo either.
Yeah. I think that makes her who she is, and I think that the key here is not to become someone whom you're not, but just to take who you are and accentuate that. I don't know. I kind of thought that was her personality, and I liked that. It made her seem real.
Yeah, what does everyone else think? Because
I don't
maybe it's just, maybe also it's just something that works on women in the wrong way than it works on men. I have no idea.
But
I agree with
the
you.
gender question, I
agree
think
with you.
I think that body presentation is really an important question because it's a lot about gender.
Mhm.
And it's about how, I mean, it really is.
Mm.
Because if we want to talk in the most, like, I'm sorry, if I put aside my professorship and we're just talking around a table and a few drinks and I never had to report to academia again,
Mhm.
you know, I would be like, it was like, it's kind of the girly body language.
Mhm.
That's the way it would be interpreted, you know?
I wasn't aware it was moving.
No, I'm not saying it's a problem. I haven't made any judgment on it. I just
Okay.
used the word to how quote unquote lay people would describe it.
Yeah.
The issue is what are the implications of this,
Yeah.
is what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I have no answer right now. I just wanted to sort of clarify what's at stake here. Because I know that there's a lot of opinions on that. And there's a lot of talk, especially recently, about the role gender plays in presentation and how performance of certain gender positions, how people view it. So I think it's a really relevant question. So that's why I wanted to hear a wider range of opinions.
Especially because most of the time, people that are presented are unconscious about the way they do. I know that I have to like restrain myself and not jump up and not like dance.
When you go in, in fact, you do
And
sometimes
I
go
do,
into dance.
yeah, and it just slips through. I can't control it completely, and I
Can
know
you do
like
your exercises while you're...
yeah, I have the
Wait a
tendency of
minute,
like
what?
straining my foot and stuff like that, and like
Yeah.
putting my hair back in a bun, and I have to really like focus on not doing that because someone said to me like, you know, this kind of distracted me from the content, but it works differently for different people.
It's
That's
a-
why I don't want to.
Yes, and I think it's an ultimately unanswerable question because part of what, or one that can only be answered by degrees, because part of what makes a presentation engaging is that the person is real.
Mhm.
And part of the reality is being not so constrained
Yeah.
that you can't. move
Otherwise,
the
you're
way you
robotic,
move.
right? And it's not interesting.
And yet, you know, but the other reality is some people's movement is going to be more effective for an audience than other people's movement. And I think the only thing I can, so I'm struggling with it, and the one thing I can imagine is maybe watching a videotape of yourself and deciding whether you like how you move. And most people don't like themselves on video. I mean, I hated myself the first time I saw it. But I think it's worth doing it because then you say, okay, that's who I am. I know I'm going to be like that. I'm going to be comfortable on stage being like that. I'll take my chances.
Mhm.
Which is very different from saying, no, I really don't like that about myself. I'd like to work on that element of my performance.
But I think it's exactly about being aware of it and thinking about, there's a certainly authenticity is an issue, but there's also an issue, there is a performative involved. And you are addressing an audience. And I would certainly say the more mixed the audience, because it's going to certainly resonate differently within them men. But
Yeah.
even depending with men on what level of seriousness you're trying to get across, there's like the you need to
You're
get across.
making me wonder what I was doing.
No.
You move a lot more than you
You
think.
move a
That's
lot.
all. You move a lot.
And
That's all.
But that's part of the
Yeah.
describing movement is about as interesting as hearing someone else's date. The
Right.
thing is, you should see it because
Okay.
then you can see movement. You know what I
Okay.
mean? But I think what you're saying is, for me, and not to get into this topic, but just to point out the parameters of it, it's the tension between what we consider a self-authentic representation and the larger, how people are interpreting it, for me, it coils down to that the person who is the speaker has to be aware of the numerous possibilities of the way that they're read so that they can interact with those possible reactions. And do you know what I'm saying? In other words, you should be aware that certain kinds of your personality can possibly provoke certain kinds of readings so that when you have an audience, you can deal with it. And the reason I say this, for example, the issue of presentations and race is very important because I've done with this, training around it for a long, long time, is that there are quote unquote mannerisms and habits that we're often told, people are often told, that they could possibly turn people off, they might be threatening, they might be problematic. And so the idea for me isn't that you take that advice from people. The idea for me is that you know consequences, so that when people decide that they're going to misread you for whatever their problematic reason is, you're ready to go with it.
Okay.
You're ready to deal with it. And that's why watching it is really cool, and that's why that question is super important. Because at the level that we're talking about, gender plays a huge, it is big. We're not talking about an evenly split gender world. In the world, I mean, some of the comments I have heard in public discussion are terrifying. I thought it was cool too, but I want you to be aware of it.
Okay.
So if that question comes up.
Are we done?
And I hate to say it, but yeah, and we're gonna have to, there's still obviously more comments and we'll have to get them to you, but